With the cessation of hostilities, we became witness to one of the most extraordinary events in history: the mass movement of refugees returning home. More than 1 million people packed their belongings in ancient battered suitcases, paper bags, and bundles, and started their long journey homeward. Walking on the highway were also those members of the disbanded German army, not in a stockade, dressed in their soiled and rumpled gray uniforms, and cutting a far different figure than in their goose-stepping days of conquest and invincibility. The Reich had enslaved workers from Czechoslovakia, Turkey, Greece, Italy, France, Norway, and many other countries to work in the factories that had fueled its vast war machine. The factory doors were now open. Tens of thousands of freed military prisoners and displaced persons, as well as those who had been incarcerated in concentration camps, also thronged the roads. With no train, bus, or plane service, and no non-military gasoline, only foot power remained. Hordes of determined people in long lines walked on each side of the road for hundreds of miles, returning home. They had no way of knowing if their house or village was still standing, or if their homes had been scorched or bombed off the face of the earth. Nor did they have any information regarding whether their wives, husbands, children, or parents were still alive or scattered in distant countries. As if by instinct, their steps were directed by memories of past places where they were born, had lived, and had enjoyed being part of a social structure. Sometimes they walked singly, sometimes in small groups seeking the same village. Sometimes the population of entire towns crowded the highways, roads, and paths of Europe, each group talking in a different tongue. Some were traveling in one direction, others in the opposite direction. Some headed north, south, east, or west. They were worn by hard labor and lack of food, emaciated, painfully thin, perpetually hungry, scavenging the countryside. Most were dressed in worn and tattered clothing. Some were still in their pajama-like striped concentration camp garb. The younger ones pressed forward with firm steps. The many elderly were stooped and walked haltingly. Would they have the strength to complete their homeward migration? Would they die on the side of some highway, far from home, albeit free? The 95th truck drivers would occasionally pull up to an aged person sitting on the roadside beside a suitcase carrying his or her worldly belongings and offer a lift. As soon as the truck came to a stop, scores of people rushed forward, painfully clambering over the tailgate until there was no longer any space, and when the truck pulled away, a crowd of disappointed persons unable to board would look longingly at the departing vehicle. In the hospital, we treated some of these people who were ill, or those with draining wounds, or ulcers of the feet, bypassing the usual admission routines. Their diet had to be controlled because they stormed the food cart and would literally eat themselves to death. The nurses soon adjusted to the varying bed census. There was only one woman in this cot last night, but on rounds this morning she had a male bedmate. In June, Colonel Sawyer called me to his office and offered me 2 months' leave to take a surgical course in Paris. He selected me, I thought, because I had expressed to him on several occasions my intention to take formal training in surgery after the end of the war, and now I could be spared. The transport officer looked over my papers, and I boarded a train to the first general hospital in Paris. The rail tracks had been bombed first by the Allied forces, then by the Germans, but somehow they were all pinned together. They were usable as long as the train did not exceed a top speed of 10 miles per hour. 3 miles per hour was maximum speed on the rickety temporary wooden bridges. Lieutenant Colonel Lawrence Beiser, a pathologist, was assigned to organize the surgical course. He did not know why he had been selected. One other student officer was also to take this course. I suspected that the hospital staff was not interested in organizing a surgical course, and would have preferred that we spend our time in Paris as we wished.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.